Have you ever held on to something, letting it define you without even realizing it? In today's episode, we dive deep into the symbolism of everyday objects, food, situations, and how they can unintentionally anchor us to past memories. Whether it's that pack of ramen noodles or something else, we're going to discover why it's essential to let go of that weight we attach to these things and understand that they don't determine our current or our future financial freedom. Let's be honest with ourselves. Sometimes we hold on to the past and it doesn't serve us. In letting go, we can definitely redefine what financial freedom looks like for us. Parece difícil lograrlo, ¿no? But the reality is that it is not as hard as it seems. This is Jen Hemphill, your host, and I feel honored you are here with me today. Our guest today, Dorethia Kelly, a personal finance, business coach, author, CEO of Money Chat, teaches us through her experience that it is indeed possible. With a proven track record of empowering individuals through coaching, keynotes, and her enriching online courses, Dorethia has been recognized by the likes of CNBC, Black Enterprise, US News, USA Today, and Experian. So you are definitely in for a treat today. Let's go ahead and get to today's conversation. Welcome, Dorothea. It is about time that you've been here. You come on the podcast because we've known each other. We've been connected
Wow.
for I don't even know want to know how
It's
many.
it's
Let's not
it's
count.
over it's a long time. It's a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but there's something I wanted to start off with before we dig into the interview that intrigued me. Detroit style ballroom. Tell me,
Oh,
what is that? Talk to me
we
because you're
like
from
to
Detroit.
dance. We like to dance. So Detroit always has its own style. So when you think of traditional ballroom dancing, it's foxtrot, it's those things. That's not what we do. It's an urban style dance, cha-cha.
Okay.
So it's a couples dance. It's called Detroit style ballroom. We also Chicago step here, salsa, tango, merengue, all the things.
All
So
the things.
yeah, we love to dance in Detroit.
Well, I love to dance. It just caught my attention. Detroit style ballroom. I have to search
Yes,
that
if you
up.
ever come, I will take you dancing. We will have a blast.
I will, yeah. I'm up. I'm always up for dancing. Well, I'm excited to have you here, and we always start off with going back in time and
Mm.
really getting to know you, your money story. So, if you could take us back in time to something maybe you experienced, whether as a little girl, maybe in your teenage years,
Mhm.
or it could be in adulthood, that
Yeah,
really has impacted up till today how you perceive
yeah,
money and maybe what you're
yeah.
doing with Money Chat.
Abs Absolutely. One of the key things for me, there's so many stories, first of all, because I always tell about how I was a single mother and I had decided that I wanted something better for my kids and my daughters. I had children early and I worked full time, went to school full time. But one of the things that was super important to me, I remember seeing the back of the cabinet. I talk about this all the time. So when there were no groceries, when there was no food, and it was a ramen noodle kind of life, right?
Mm.
And I remember saying, I will never see the back of my cabinets. One day, there will be a day that comes, and I will never see the back of my cabinets ever again, because to me, that symbolized lack and it symbolized not having enough. And so I worked hard at that. And to this day, like people, my girlfriend comes over and she's like, Dorothea, I feel like you're like lightweight wasteful. But as long as the back of that cabinet is covered, it's okay, because for me, it's a mental thing. And I had ramen noodles for the first time in ages, not too long ago. My youngest daughter, she didn't experience as much of it as my oldest daughter. So I remember when she was in high school, she wanted me to buy ramen noodles. And I was like, honey, we don't do that anymore. Not because I'm better than or I'm a snob, but because of what it symbolized to me and the time period that it symbolized. So about last year, I actually cooked some ramen noodles and I put it on TikTok. I was cracking up. I was like, oh my God, this takes me back, and I am healed and whole now.
Nice. And I noticed you say ramen, and I thought it was
It's
ramen.
ramen, right?
I don't know.
I know.
Good question, because I'm like, she said ramen, because I am so in my
I think it's
household,
ramen.
I always mispronounce stuff. So I'm like, here is
Yeah.
another word I'm mispronouncing.
Listen, I think we're in the same boat, and forgive me, everybody, but I think it's ramen. But I
Mhm.
have been saying ramen noodles for so long.
And it's all
It's
good.
horrible. It's all good.
Now, with that story, what did you learn from this? You know, because you had that experience of filling up your cabinet. You had that
Yeah.
experience of, you know what, I don't want to do ramen or ramen and noodles. But what did you take away from that? Let's talk about that a little bit.
What I took a couple of things. Sometimes things symbolize. Sometimes we hold on to things and internalize them, like I did with the noodles. But we need to kind of let that stuff go. Even like with me, with looking at the back of the cabinet, it's a thing that's not going anywhere because I don't want it to go anywhere. But I think that sometimes we internalize things and we make it more than it is. Just because I see the back of the cabinet does not mean that I'm poor or broke again. Right?
Right? It could be
That
just
kind
a
of
small
thing.
cabinet.
Thank you. I like the way you think. I like the way
Just
you
because I
think.
moved around so
Yeah.
much, I always have to put the puzzle together, and sometimes there's just
Yeah.
not space. That's what it is
Yeah,
sometimes.
exactly. So I think that the other piece of this, and I say this all the time, is not to feel shamed, not to
Mm,
be ashamed of where you are, not to beat yourself up about the past or the future or the current, or sometimes we feel like our past has just so destroyed our future, but there's nothing is the end of the world. So don't feel shame. Let's just move forward and let's just take the steps that it takes.
I agree. And since then, how has your life changed after, experiencing these and these
Yeah.
other stories that I know
Yeah,
you mentioned?
yeah. Well, it's a journey, right? My kids are grown now. I have come a long way. That was in my 20s. By the time I hit my 30s, I was financially stable because
Mm,
I did the steps, I made the sacrifice. So I started teaching myself everything I could about money. I started going to seminars and listening to podcasts, watching TV shows. And that's how I ended up starting to teach it, then teaching my children and teaching my family, because I wanted to make sure that this is a family legacy of wealth building, a family legacy of financial stability. Now, whether people listen or not, that's on them, but at least I'm getting the information and I'm sharing it. So for me, that's what the journey has been, is staying on solid financial ground. We have ups and downs. Things happen to all of us financially. Nobody stays up and is just up forever. Financial struggles come and they go. But the key is the knowledge that you have to be able to overcome them. And so that's where we are now in our lives. We're empty nesters. Our children are adults now, and we're able to kind of step back and watch and see what they do with what we've taught them and live our life on our terms financially and lifestyle, and enjoy life because we did the work, you know?
absolutely. And what can
Yeah.
one key thing that I want to make sure you listening men it really hears what she says here is that she say taking the knowledge and using that knowledge that you have. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean, because I know you and I know, Dorothea, that we beat ourselves up, right, for what
Yes.
we didn't do or the mistakes that we did and all
Yeah.
of that. But it's about taking what you know, and it's about what you taking what you know now. It doesn't mean you have to know everything, and
Right.
just taking action with that. You don't have to
Yes.
know all the things. You still are going to make mistakes, and that's completely okay. It's
Yeah.
just doing something with what you
Yes.
know, and doing and doing something with what you have. It's not about waiting
Yes.
until you get the bigger paycheck, waiting until you get out of debt, but it's just
No.
doing something now with what you know. And I like that you
Absolutely.
really said that.
Absolutely.
Now, with your business, you mentioned that you started teaching. You started teaching about
Yes.
financial education, and I noticed that one of your biggest focuses is about debt, managing money, and
Yes.
also another key piece is creating financial freedom. And of course,
Yes.
your book, Money Chat, focuses on just this. So
Yes.
let's talk briefly because in our world of personal finance, we hear a lot of stories about how to get
Mhm.
out of debt.
Yeah.
If you could give only one piece of advice about getting out of debt, or with someone, just to the person that's listening in right now that's maybe
Mhm.
drowned in debt, what would
Yeah.
that be?
Oh my goodness. Just one? Oh my
Just one,
goodness.
I
Okay.
know, because we have a lot to cover.
I know, I know. The thing that the practical thing as far as getting moving and paying off your debt, I really truly believe in paying off your debt smallest to largest. Tell you that this is the method that I use. This is the method I use with my clients. We do that debt snowball. You pay them off smallest to largest. It makes you feel better. You feel like you have a sense of accomplishment. And I know creditors may be calling. There, you may have some with high interest rates that are eating you up, but there is a sense of satisfaction when you're able to pay off a small one and then take that monthly payment and add it to the next one. And you have a plan. There is a load lifted when you just have a plan for your money like that. And I've worked with people that have done all number of strategies for paying off debt. And this one has just been the one that has stuck. So that is my number one suggestion. I'm telling you, I was at home crying over, back then we had checkbooks. Nobody has a checkbook anymore.
I still
I was
have it for some
crying,
certain school stuff.
crying and praying over my checkbook. And when I started doing it this way, it was like a big boulder off of my shoulders. So that's the number one thing that I would suggest.
I agree, because I know with my husband, he was always, well, let's just get this one paid off first, because it's just, like you said, it's that quick win. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, but we're paying more interest than that. I was
Mhm.
too focused on,
Yeah.
oh, how much more interest, but it's about just accomplishing something. And I've
Yes.
since then, I'm a big fan of that one too. Just
Absolutely.
go small, because that sense of accomplishments or accomplishment really keeps you going, in my opinion. It
It
just gives
does.
you that, because you're making progress instead of paying off something that maybe is going to take years to pay off. You
Yes.
maybe you'll give up, or something will happen. Because life always
Yeah.
happens, and then you
Life
maybe
happens.
pause, and you don't want to deal with it anymore. Then
It's a lot.
it can be messy.
Yes. Yes, it can.
Now, you also teach about managing money,
Yes.
something that we like to avoid. Is that we don't like to look at
We
our
just wanna spend the
numbers.
money.
We just like to, as long as the bills are taken care of, we can spend some money,
Yeah.
we're all good. What would you say is the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to managing their money?
Not knowing where it is, what's happening with it. And we've all, my hand is raised when you have money coming in and there's money coming in. And you're like, okay, I got money to cover that. You slack off a little bit. But what we want to make sure that we do is that we are conscious about knowing where our money is going, because when we are not, we'll spend more over here, or we'll commit to things that we don't even know we can't do or should not do. Some things we can do that we should not do, because you have to keep your goals in front of you. What are your financial goals? And it doesn't mean you can't live. I have a saying, life is for the living. I say it all the time. And that is the truth. Life is for the living. Our goal is not to just keep our heads down and hoard money and not enjoy our money, but you have to put everything into perspective. So when you have a plan for everything, it's okay to go spend, because I'm going to spend this amount, you spend that amount. I'm going to save this amount. I'm going to invest this amount. I had a client who her goal, she said, Dorothea, I hope you're not going to tell me not to help my family, because helping my family is important to me. And if you tell me that, I'm walking out this door. And I said, no, I'm not going to tell you that. But what I am going to tell you is to have a bucket for your family.
Mhm.
So you have a line item in your budget for your family help. She helped people go to college. She helped with clothes. She helped with any number of things. That was important to her. So meeting yourself where you are with your goals, what's important to you. Some people's thing is they must give to charity. That is key to them. So we make room for that. Make room
Right.
for that in your life. What is important to you? It's not always about the travel and the fun stuff that's just for your household. A lot of people really are into what they can do for the world, and we make room for that. So when it comes to money management, it is all of those things that make you happy as it relates to your money without causing additional stress. That is the key.
I'm so with you. I'm so with you because I know we tend to, look at all the advice that is out there and you're like, oh my goodness, I need to do A, B, and C. But
Yes.
then you're not, it's maybe not aligned with what you need, what your household
Right.
need, what your family needs right now. And
Yeah.
so what will work for them, like you said, like in the case of giving, helping family members or tithing and doing all those
Yeah.
things,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
it's making it's really looking at how do you fit it in? I mean, put it in
Yes.
there and I like to work backwards, right? I like to
Yes.
just put those things in. Okay, this is what I want to do. And then from there you can figure out a plan instead of, oh, I can't do this because I have to be focused on paying off debt or whatever
Yeah.
that may, or
Yeah.
building my emergency
Yeah.
fund or whatever that may be. But you really,
Absolutely.
because the more you do it that's aligned with what you need and what your household needs and what's important, what's your values, the more that you're going to continue to and on that path of taking that action forward towards your goals, right?
I agree.
So I'm with
I
you.
agree. Yeah. You feel like you're not missing anything because
Right.
a lot of you don't feel like you're being deprived or that you're not able to do the giving or traveling, whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah, it's not a chore. It's something that you
Yeah.
can enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the other aspect of what you focus on is creating financial freedom. Something
Yes.
that when people hear that word, oh, that is something that I want to do, but
Oh,
is it
yes.
doable? Can I ever get there? Right. And there are some myths around financial freedom, of course. Financial freedom can mean so many things and so many different things to different people. But what do you think is the most doable? Because a lot of people think, oh, I would love that, but I don't know if I can ever reach it.
Right.
And so
They
what
think they don't think they can achieve it because they
right,
don't know anyone who has done it,
exactly.
or their idea of financial freedom is super rich, like somebody that's super rich. So what I tell everybody to do is ask yourself, just have an honest conversation, get quiet, go somewhere and have a honest conversation with yourself about what financial freedom looks like to you. For some people, it is being completely out of debt. For other people, financial freedom is having all my bills paid every month. For other people, it's I'm able to give. So you and I can't tell the audience what financial freedom looks like to them.
Right,
We only know that for ourselves. So everyone has to sit down and just say, what does this look like for me? And there are so many people who don't believe it can happen. I really want to speak to those folks.
please,
A lot of
please.
times we can't see it because we're in the midst of our stuff, or we don't know anybody, or we think their situation is different. I am here to tell you that you can have financial freedom, and you can have the financial freedom that you want, not what I want, not what Jen wants, not what anybody else wants. But if you sit down and you're honest with yourself about what financial freedom means to you, I am here to tell you you can have it. I am here to tell you you can have it. So sit down, think about what that is, and then go after that like crazy.
And it's okay also that that definition or what you see or what you envision as financial freedom, that may change.
It
Time it
evolves.
evolves because sometimes we think, like you mentioned, a lot of people, not a lot, but I can't say a lot, but I'm
Yes.
generalizing here. People will think financial freedom is having the 5 cars and the and a
Yes.
hundred rooms
Yes.
and all that. And that might be what they think initially, but as they go and as they progress and they achieve some goals and they feel
Yeah.
free, it might not be
Yeah.
as much, all that. It might be
So,
more, creating some memories, traveling, and that you've been
yeah,
able to do that. So that evolves and changes. So if you're
it
thinking that you
does.
want all the big things, and that's okay. Go
Yeah.
for it, but that might be evolve and that's okay too. And it doesn't have to,
Yeah.
you define what it is
It
for you.
does. And I'll give an example with me. So when I was a single mother, going to school full time, working full time, my financial freedom was all of my bills were paid.
Mm,
That was as far as I could see because that was my stress. That's what I was crying over. And it took me a couple years to get there because of my income and all the things. But then when I got there, I was like, okay, what is really achievable? So then there was another goal that meant financial freedom. I achieved this. I know how to manage my money now, and I'm in a good place. But now, wow, I've got this debt. How do I get this debt paid down?
right.
So now financial freedom looks different. Then the next thing for me was, huh, emergency fund. I want more than $1,000 in the bank. I want more than $2,500 in the bank. So that is just an example of how financial freedom for me changed, especially in the very early years.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. Now, out of those 3 focuses, what would you say is your favorite one? Do you have a favorite?
What do you mean?
In
Like out
terms
of which?
of what the focus is in terms of what you teach and getting out of debt, managing money, and creating that financial freedom. Is there something that really fires you up?
I love teaching the nitty-gritty of budgeting and developing a strategy for your money and getting into the details, right? That's fine. That's good practical things. I love helping people find the dream in
Mm,
their in because I'm also a business coach. So in the financial coaching and in the business coaching, I love the strategy, building up the long-term strategy and moving people like a freight train toward their dream. So I love like the question about financial freedom. I love walking through that with people and listening to what that looks like for them, whether it's for their personal finances or in a business coaching session. My excitement at this point in my business is from helping people reach the dream.
I love it
Yeah.
because sometimes
Yeah.
we forget about dreaming. We've given up on
Yeah.
dreams, or we've just
Yeah.
kind of settled. We're settled in our
Yes. We're
day to
settling.
day and decided to accept that our current situation is our
Yeah.
permanent situation, but it isn't.
Right.
It
It's
isn't.
not.
We can
It's
have
not.
more, and it's okay to to have more. So
That's right.
I really love
Abundance.
yes, I
That's
really
right.
love that you
That's
do
right.
that. Now, since I've known you, Money Chat has been really a big part of your brand, for a
Yes.
long time. How did that come about in terms of naming it Money Chat? Let us
Oh my
know.
goodness. Okay, transparent moment here. I was already a financial coach. I hadn't yet started doing a lot of business coaching, but I was already a financial coach and was heading into business coaching. And Twitter came on about. And I was like, oh my God, one more thing. Like we are now with all the social media, like, oh my God, one more thing. So I hated Twitter with a passion. And I went to a friend and Hodge Flemings, who is big in this world and in AI and all the things. And he said, Dorothea, just stick with it for a second. When I start something, I go all in. I said, okay, if I'm gonna learn this Twitter thing, I'm gonna go all in. And I started Money Chat. And for 5 years, I did an online Twitter chat called Money Chat. And then after that is when I wrote the book. I also did these events. So
Mm.
I called it, let's take the online conversation offline. And I did events at local businesses to bring awareness to those businesses. And we had a money conversation at those places. It was amazing. We had a blast. I did that for a few years. And every now and then I still do a live Money Chat. And that's how Money Chat came. And then I wrote the book. And so that's how the brand came about, trademarked all the things. And that's how it started. And it wasn't until a friend told me, Dorothea, you doing this Money Chat, Twitter chat really makes a difficult conversation easier to have. And that's when I started doing those live events and all the other things that created the brand around Money Chat.
So it goes back to Twitter.
It
Very
goes
int
back to Twitter.
I do remember years ago, those money chats
Yeah,
were I mean, in terms of not just
yeah.
yours, but just
Monday night
having
money
the
chat.
yeah, those
Yes,
things. Oh, that is so awesome. That is so
yeah,
interesting. Now, another thing about you that I really love is that you've graced your stages as a keynote
yes,
speaker.
yes,
And of course, the scope, especially since I've been in this space for a while, has changed over
yeah,
the years. It has grown,
yeah,
and I know you've probably seen it. I have seen it well
yeah,
as well. And since you started teaching, I'm curious to
yes.
know what has changed for you in terms of your philosophy, your message as to what you teach. How has it at
What
all changed?
so yes, 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 it has changed. I to be 100% transparent. When I first started, I was young, of course, and I was very much against any credit card. But I didn't have any either. So I was very much against any credit card. As you grow, and my clients actually influence this, as you grow and you work with different people, you realize that everything is not cookie cutter. And I knew this, but really, everything is not cookie cutter. I do see the benefit of using credit cards as a tool. I don't know if that's blasphemy, but I do see that, right? But here's my caveat. And I had this conversation with someone. The caveat is majority of the people that I work with who are in a very bad financial situation they're trying to get out of, that person should never touch a credit card.
Mm.
Because the truth is, and I just want everybody to hear this, credit cards are for people who don't need them. You really need to think about that. If you are a person who doesn't need a credit card, then you're the perfect person for it. But a lot of people see it as an emergency fund or extra money. And that view is what gets you into crazy credit card debt. I learned early on that credit cards were really for people who don't need them, because then that is the person who can pay it off every month. That is the person who can get the points and has time to do all the strategy around it. But the person who is living paycheck to paycheck or just got on their feet financially, credit cards are not for them, because there's still some mental financial stability that needs to go on. There's still some work that needs to be done. I've had to work through that with clients. I've had clients tell me that needed to get rid of credit cards that would not, and that's their choice, but it's for people who do not need them. And I just need everybody to know that.
Oh my goodness. I love how you phrase that because it makes so much sense. Once I didn't think about it that way. But when I think about to some workshops that I have seen or
Yeah.
to some banks working with people to help them build credit, there's
Yeah.
still things that they're relaying, communicating, teaching without the full picture. So for
Yes.
example, I've seen some financial workshops that even put on by
Yeah.
colleges where they teach an emergency part of, yes, building an emergency fund, but a
Yes.
part of that emergency plan can also be a credit card. And I'm like, oh my
Yep.
gosh, don't
Yes.
don't do
I
that.
know.
I have also seen and people come to me and talk to me, hey, I've been trying to build credit. I applied for a credit card and my bank told me to use it and just pay the minimum every
Yes.
month. I'm
Right.
like,
See?
pay the minimum? I mean, yes, you can pay the minimum to build credit, but that comes with a cost. Would you rather build
Yes.
your credit for free? Or would you
Yes.
build rather
Exactly.
or would you or do you want to build your credit at a cost of high
Yeah.
interest? Like which one?
Yeah.
And I can't say that those the people that were sitting in front of
Right.
them
Right.
were doing this out of with a bad
It's not malice.
intention. They
Yeah.
probably don't know or don't
They
understand.
don't
They're
know.
just relaying information that they're given, but the
Yeah.
person doesn't know. And so they take this and they're like, okay,
And
it's
they do
okay. They
it.
start this and they don't
Yeah.
realize and they get themselves in this bad situation. And I'm
So
like,
much
oh
trouble.
my gosh,
So much trouble.
don't do
Yes.
that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Please don't do that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Yeah.
I love how you said that. It's for
Yeah.
people, credit
Thank you.
cards are for people who don't need them. Because if you
You
are
don't need them.
struggling and maybe or you're
You're going
living
to use it.
paycheck to paycheck,
Yeah.
it's
You're going to use it. None of us has that kind of willpower. We
right.
teach this. No, none of us has that kind of willpower.
Right.
You're almost setting yourself up for failure, and then shaming yourself for doing what humanity does. You're human.
Right.
So you have to be careful with the temptation. If you have a credit card and you haven't spent on it, and you're overextended that month and you need groceries, all of us, any of us would make the decision to use the credit card to buy groceries. Like, we would do that. We would use it to pay our car note, or I don't know if you can use it to pay a car note anymore, but we'd use it to pay our household expenses. And you really just do not want to use a credit card to pay household expenses.
Right. Or sometimes, and even though we have with our system, we use a credit card for certain things, and then
Yes,
we use a certain account where we just filter in money for just daily expenses. But
exactly.
when maybe I don't want to, I feel like I don't have the time to check the bank app to see what's going on with the money. I just easily take out the credit card. Like what you
Exactly.
say, it's so
It's
easier to do
easy.
because you're like, oh, I'll deal with it later.
Exactly, exactly. I'm gonna tell you
Oh my
real quick.
goodness.
We tried this experiment, and I realized after doing this that I don't have this temperament. We said we were gonna pay all our bills on a credit card to get the points
Mhm.
and then pay the credit card off. Well, even though I had the money and I knew I had spent it on the credit card, when it came time to pay the bill, mentally, I was like, oh my
It's
God.
a big balance.
Yeah, and I was like, even though I know what I did and I knew what the plan was, I was like, this isn't for me. This is mental stress. I cannot do this.
Yeah.
So you have to know yourself.
Oh, absolutely. So to wrap this up, Dorothy, I wanted to ask a not so serious question because
Okay.
we started the interview about dancing, right? How you
Yeah.
love dancing, and you
Yes.
also dance salsa, which, oh my gosh, that salsa is probably one of my favorite dancing. I mean, I just once I
Yes.
feel the music,
Yes.
I'm there. I'm curious to know. I know for me, salsa helps me just to disconnect. Especially, I connect
Yes.
with the music. I feel the music,
Yes.
and I'm disconnected. And so even though I love different genres and salsa is just the one that I for some reason I feel it the most, it helps me to just reset in a sense. It
Yes.
helps me to
Yeah.
reset no matter what mistakes I've made. And I'm curious to know, does salsa or the Detroit ballroom dancing, does that do that for you? I'm curious to know like,
You know what? It is so interesting you asked this question. I am not that great at salsa. If I have a good lead, I can kind of do it. But Detroit Ballroom does that for me. I
okay.
just went dancing last week after having not danced in many months because I've been working on the book launch. And I it was like life breathed right back into me. So yes, I know exactly dancers know. We know. So it breathes life into me. It fuels me. I must do those things. It's like going to a museum or learning something new, but dancing
Yeah.
and just getting out there because I'm so good at that particular one, that one really does fuel me. I love to dance, so I'll do anything, but that one I'm really good at. So
I'll do anything too, but I noticed, nowadays I'm like, oh, I got to be more careful because my knees. I'm like, oh, I got to watch my knees,
right.
conserve my knees. But,
That's right. That's
anyways,
right.
well, this has been such a fantastic conversation. I
Yes.
really am glad that finally, after years and years and years,
Me
you always have the
too.
best intentions, and sometimes
It's all
it
right
takes
though.
time.
It's all
So
good.
I am glad you were here. You were fantastic. I really appreciate
Thank
everything that you
you.
shared with us.
Thank you. And I would like to invite everybody to visit moneychatbook.com and grab their copy.
What did you think about today's conversation? Let's do a quick recap, shall we? In today's conversation, you heard Dorothea gave her top piece of advice about getting out of debt. She also shared the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to managing their money, as well as a key question that you can ask yourself to help you achieve financial freedom. She also shared, which I love, her recommendation on when it's not favorable to have a credit card. I encourage you to connect with her. You can connect with her at DorotheaKelly.com, and you will find that link in today's show notes. Now, I wanted to ask you a question. After listening to me converse with our guest today, with Dorothea, did you think about any, whether object or something in your life that has presented scarcity, a limitation, or maybe a challenging situation? If so, don't feel bad about it. Let's talk about it because it happens to all of us. The key is to recognize it and take away the power of of that meaning of limitation of scarcity that it currently has in your life. You can share your thoughts. Again, let's have a conversation in our private community, which is at jenhemphill.com, and you can find that in the show notes. As for next week, if you'd like to discover a fun and unique way to teach your children from an early age how to manage money, you need to get ready for next week's episode with Greg Merced, who will introduce you to an alternative that you'll absolutely love. Bueno, pues that is everything. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us. You can check out the show notes over at jenhemphill.com/365, or just simply take a look at the show notes. Remember that being a reina starts now simply by claiming it. I believe in you, and so should you. Nos hablaremos el próximo jueves. Ciao.